The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, Medicine for These Times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. Hello, welcome back to Medicine for These Times. Just a quick reminder that I would really appreciate a review if you are enjoying this podcast at all. It would really mean a lot to me, and not only to me, but to all the listeners and all the people out there who are trying to find good information about psychedelics, sacred medicines, purpose, and how to navigate these times that we live in. So thank you so much for participating. I wanted to do an episode on drinking ayahuasca in the Kali Yuga. I don't know where this came from. It completely intuitively came to me the other day, and I figured I would just see what channels out. The title, which is rare for me, where the title comes before the content, was Ayahuasca, what is it? Ayahuasca and the Kali Yuga. So let me begin by defining what people out there say the Kali Yuga is. So you can Google this. It's ancient wisdom. It is this theory that we are in the turning of the great year, the 26,000 year cycle, which, by the way, is not actually 26,000 years. It's like 25, 9 something. I forgot the numbers. But this is ancient wisdom, not just spanning from, certain traditions, but all traditions believe that there are cycles that the earth goes through, just like all cycles in nature, like our breath, the moon, the waves in the ocean, the seasons, the years. There's always cycles. Everything is cyclical. Where, as many of you have probably heard, we're also in the turning of an ages into the Aquarian age, and there are different theories about when this officially started or is starting. But we are supposedly going through this great turning of the ages right now. There are a few astrologers that I follow that say the Kali Yuga is officially coming to an end, which, by the way, means that there's a new age beginning. Just keep in mind these ages are 26,000 year cycles. So they're not quick and it's slow. We're not just going to see a day and then all of a sudden things are different. But then again, who knows? Maybe we will. So the idea is, if you know about Kali, and what Kali represents, the great destroyer. Some people see goddess Kali Ma as this kind of, negative entity that just has her tongue sticking out with a head in her hand and, just blood everywhere. But it's kind of, when I think of Kali, I think of the forest fire. So here in America, every time there's a forest fire, everybody seems to think it's the worst thing ever. But there's always a reason for a forest fire. And by the way, it is sad when there's accidental forest fires, and but there's also this reality of it's just part of nature. And there's different theories. I am not saying what's true and what I believe in. It's just what is, right? It happens and things burn down, and then there's this compost process, but then newness, new trees, new sprouts, new seeds grow. This is yet another cycle in nature. So the belief is we're in the Kali Yuga, and there's some people that might disagree with this, but if you look around, it seems like things can be very, what we would put into quotes, bad. I like to use good and bad very lightly because I actually don't really believe anything is black or white. I believe there's both sides to everything. And if we want to choose to see the perspective as good versus bad, we can, or we could choose to just accept what is, and also know that for every light, there's a dark, and every good, there's a bad, and every positive, there's a negative. It's just a range of feelings and meanings and stories that we make. But essentially, this kind of idea of the Kali Yuga is that there's this burning down of the world, and a lot of this is symbolic, right? It's like, yeah, there's burning down, and then at the same time, there's a rebirthing. So for those of us that are old enough to remember life before the internet and then life after the internet, that's kind of an example. It's like, okay, there was a world that existed one way, and then this whole entire other world was born, and, there was a shift. And a lot of us didn't even really notice. It just became part of our lives. And lo and behold, here I am recording this on a computer and distributing it across this thing we now call the internet. But this never even existed just within my own lifetime. Or it had existed maybe around when I was first born, but no one really was working with it except a handful of people. So what I like to think of as the Kali Yuga is, yes, there's a certain level of destruction and things crumbling and burning to the ground, and wars and volcanoes and natural disasters, and who knows, maybe even this whole climate change thing. The earth is going through cycles. Humanity goes through cycles. And it seems really freaking hard, right? How many of you, I'm curious, have been experiencing lots of pain and grief and sadness and anxiety and fear? I mean, all these range of emotions, especially the last, few years, but especially the last couple of years. I'm sure most of you listening have had this at least once. I'd be shocked if you didn't. I would love to know if you've had none of these emotions in the last couple of years. But this is part of the work. And I recently attended a life-changing grief tending ritual with an elder named Lawrence Cole, who I'm going to hopefully have on this podcast. This was a couple weeks ago, and this was after I was sitting with medicine in another country with sacred medicine, ayahuasca, which tends to be the medicine of my choice. And, sitting with ayahuasca, and not just ayahuasca, but I think any medicine during these times that we're in, these times of war and destruction and natural disasters and not knowing what's even real or what's fake, and, politicians and corruption and lies and deceit and AI. And I mean, I could go on and on. These medicines that we work with they can amplify the amount of uncertainty and fear and anxiety and grief of everything that is alive for us in the collective today, which I don't know. Some of you might deny that this is alive in the collective, but it's pretty present for me as someone who's highly sensitive and very attuned with other energies, probably like most of you listening, and most people on the medicine path. We are all in this together, and we all feel it together. So there's really no denying any of these range of feelings and emotions that are surfacing. And if you're working with some of these pretty intense medicines, they tend to surface even more or even stronger. I don't know about you, but I spent a year and a half where every single ceremony was just filled with so much grief, pain, even saw my own dead body, which is not the most pleasant thing to see. And of course, at one point I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It's just not fun. Like, why am I doing this? Granted, I don't believe that we work with psychedelics to be fun. Yes, there's always a fun aspect, and I don't think that's the main reason most of us are drawn to them. But what has come up with me, especially since I've moved through this major grief portal, and not to say it's gone, just to say it's been moving, the energy has been moving. And who knows, I think I'm just learning how to process it better and allow it to move through my being. What came through over this last month of having 4 different ceremonies and then a grief tending ritual and then wrapping it up as a helper in a ceremony was that I believe those of you who are called to this path of healing, facilitation, therapy, coaching, any kind of work in this transformational realm, especially in the medicine realm or working with psychedelics, I do believe it is imperative for all of you, for all of us. I'm not just speaking to you, I'm speaking to me as well, for every one of us working in this space to be doing the very uncomfortable, hard work that requires a lot of resilience and emotional IQ and support to be able to then better serve our clients and the world in a deeper way. So for any of you who tend to run from the discomfort of, let's say, ayahuasca, because they're very hard ceremonies sometimes, and, I know I've met plenty of people who say, oh, I don't want to work with even psilocybin or ayahuasca or iboga or any of these kind of medicines that can be hard, because why? I have MDMA and ketamine. Like, why would I do those? But really, I think if you're here to hold space for major transformation and healing of deep traumas, collective trauma, collective pain, I mean, I don't believe the work you're doing is just with any individual. It's a collective. It's ancestral. It's intergenerational. It's, epigenetics. I can talk about this for hours. But I do believe it requires all of us who are serving, who are on the path of service to other than ourself, on service to the greater good, have to be doing this really deep, uncomfortable, and sometimes highly challenging work, because then that makes you better able to serve and help others. One pattern I've noticed, and I would love to hear in the comments if this is anything you relate to. One thing I've noticed over the last 5, 6, maybe even longer, 7, 8 years, is people that are on the path of service and healing and service to other, like coaches, healers, facilitators, therapists. What I've noticed is you very often are given very challenging initiations, and initiations that tend to maybe happen earlier and sooner than other people's initiations. For example, I've noticed that a lot of people who I've served have been going through what I call the ringer, essentially hell on earth, grief, loss, sickness, breakups, being tested. I could go on, the last few years. But what I'm noticing is now that they've kind of evened out and, of course, their life has up leveled, because that's what happens after you go through an initiation. You go through, you're on a path of learning and growth and service. And very often you have to be given these initiations, these tests, these hard ceremonies, whatever they are, all of the above, to then learn how to be more resilient and how to work with these energies and how to transmute them to then be, better able to handle them and hold space for others that are then going through them later. So as I've seen people like my clients, myself, and a lot of my peers, like kind of even out, and not only that, but like kind of blow up to the next level of service and their business and their leadership in, their life in general, their abundance. What I've then noticed is then there's other people starting in their initiations, their hard times. And so therefore, a lot of my clients then have clients who are really going through it. And I wanted to just record this episode. Again, I don't know why the title just channeled through me, but I think it was really about, I've had these very clear messages about having to do this uncomfortable work. Like, for example, I keep wondering why there's not more people doing grief work or death work or saying the hard things or calling out things that there's a cognitive dissonance around. Like, why aren't there more people sharing about this, And I think there's just so much fear. There's avoidance. There's just like the typical ego mind wants to avoid the pain and be in the comfort. But these times that we're living in are not designed to be comfortable. I mean, of course, you can distract yourself with social media, with impulsive shopping, eating, drinking, whatever else people do. Partying, taking the feel-good drugs, maybe you've gone from SSRIs to doing ketamine every week. But there is a point where I do believe if you don't consciously, as actually the theme that came up during the grief tending ritual I was in a few weeks ago was, it was the Venus as in the planet. It was her journey into the underworld, and she was going through the last gate, which is death by intent. You have to consciously choose to have this ego death consciously choose to go and do the hard work in order to be able to serve. And here's the thing. You're not going to die doing the hard work. Yeah, it might hurt your heart and feel a little painful for a bit, but if you have some really good support and lots of tools and community and people around you and coaches and healers and therapists, whatever it is you need to guide you through the initiatory process, you will come out bigger, better, more abundant, more aligned, more happy, more free, more soul liberated, and authentically you than ever. So, this is where I say to people very often, you have a choice. You could either wait until the universe pounds you down to the ground to teach you a lesson, or you can consciously go in and explore and do the deeper work in order to then be able to, have your soul step into its next level of expansion and service and support in the world. So I think that's why this theme of ayahuasca and the Kali Yuga came through me. It's not about ayahuasca. Essentially, it's just, however you want to do your work. It doesn't have to be with ayahuasca. I don't think ayahuasca is for everybody. But what it does represent is, this kind of death by intent. Every time I go and drink ayahuasca, I pray for this beautiful, angelic, like all light filled experience, which, sometimes happens, but a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times it's showing me what needs to be seen. And it's very hard sometimes, especially as I'm being shown large scale, grief and sadness and changes and transitions on the planet and things that I hope don't come true, but maybe they will, or maybe they already are. But it's okay. There's nothing wrong. It's all good. I do believe there's a higher power. There's a higher cycle at play. And we're here for this. I do believe our souls sign up to be here incarnated at this time, even if it's really damn hard. And you listening to this are called to the path of service or the path of psychedelics, the path of medicine, the path of healing and transformation and transmutation for a reason. So the more you can just accept that and work with it and work with your guides, work with your, however you do your spiritual practice and, get on your knees and pray for it to be gentle and smooth and be of service. And, just see what happens. And just also know that I'm here for support. I have clients, so many amazing clients that do really great work in the world. If you need any further support with whatever it is, integration, somatics, grief, trauma healing, women's work, men's work, I could go on and on. Anyways, thank you so much for being here and being alive at this beautiful time in history. You are the medicine we need for these times. I will see you next week with a new episode. Bye. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to BethAWeinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.